slides yesterday because I didn't want to overcomplicate things. But real quick, I told you that mythology and reality are on this spectrum. Blue shift, red shift. Someone said that in the comments. Brilliant. I think you're right because Hades is blue. And the one with the reality would be red. I'm using reality here just in this slide just so I can explain this. It's really more source. But if I say the word source, I don't think the average person's going to know what that means. So I type the word reality. An example of that is this. On the left is Elohim. On the right is the zygote. The zygote is a 16-cell blastocyst that gives you who you are, and on the left is the Elohim. And that you would, if you read the Bible in Genesis, I swear to you, it's going to just tell you the conscious forms that go into the Elohim, that there's a moment when let there be light. And over a 7-day period, believe it or not, this blastocyst forms itself. It forms the waters above and the waters below by creating a space inside of it. And that space inside the blastocyst, for the very first time, the blastocyst pulls something in from the outer universe. Do you know what it pulls in? It pulls water from the mother. After it forms the outer shell of its structure, it uses osmosis, believe it or not, and it kind of suctuates. There's a word I just made up. I don't mind you calling me out for that. It suctuates water from the outside into the center because of the vacuum of of this crevice it just created. So the waters come pouring in from Mother itself, and there's something in that water, and it's salt. And so when you're reading the story of Genesis, that salt is the very first tablet that the Elohim, the conscious blastocyst, has to record what just happened to it. This is Thoth. This is the essence of Thoth. Thoth is the Egyptian god of writing, right? And that's because of memory, memology. It's the ability to remember. So when the mother gives the ability to remember to the blastocyst, to the zygote, and it's able to write, hey, this tick, something just happened. And then tick, something just happened. Tick, something just happened. And every time it goes back to the salt, it goes, wow, I have some ticks here. I should develop a math. How do you develop a math? You develop a limbic relationship with you start to build limbically, and you're not using your eyes. This is why I think it's such a farce to talk about vision as like proof of reality. We've been rendering consciousness from the moment we formed a blastocyst. That's what Genesis is about. The whole thing is about that. I encourage you to read it again. You'll find it fascinating. And so the recording of this salt, the recording of this process is your ability to build a memory. And the moment you build a memory, everything that limbically happens to you has meaning. The word meaning. It means something to you because you thoughtfully wrote it down. All right. So the spectrum between Elohim and zygote, or mythology and reality, really comes through because we have a story in Genesis of blastocytic consciousness. We have a story in Genesis about that. And that only after we've developed the optics, to develop the microscopes, to develop the slides, to even know where to go inside the woman to even find the zygote itself. And only then, only recently have we realized, oh my gosh, this is Genesis. And it could be a conspiracy. I don't mind you calling it that, but I think you're just looking at the fractal of reality. That when you zoom up or in or out, the only way to zoom is through I want you to think about an invisible thread of mythology. That this is how you get through. And so you extrapolate to move. It's how you move your cursor around the screen. You're in reality, you step into mythology, and then now you can look at the perimeter, and now you're looking for serendipity, you're looking for coincidence, and then you uncollapse that, then you sink back down into where you are, and you saturate yourself with it. And the entire time, you don't actually experience directly what's there. You only have a limbic impression of what happens. And because you only have a limbic impression of what happens, you're only going to be able to record the resolution that you own. And that's not actually reality. That's just you writing down stuff, right? Meaning that it's reality. I'm sorry, it's not objective reality, because how would you know? How would you know? We dissected the brain. I could prove that I was thinking. I could prove that I'm smashing engrams, but it's very much like blockchain, meaning that it's converted into a hash, and the hash is converted into a shadow, and it's kind of stamped. That's the closest we have. So this is the biggest proof I can say that there's no objective reality, because there's no evidence. There's no evidence of any limbic impressions that we can measure and compare them to each other. We have the shadow of that impression. And if you want to really think about this more, I think you should read into engrams and what memories are, because at the heart of what we're calling the scientific method would have to be memory. How do we know what we say happened? Like, that's a biggie. And I think that would be proof 3, that it would be impossible to even call it objective reality. It just doesn't make sense. We tend to just smell our way around. We build a model, and we petrify the model with belief. We get up in the morning and we're like, you're real, you're real, you're real, you're real. And you know what reinforces that? Not whether or not it's true. Here's what reinforces it. Did you have a good time believing it? That's how you do it. Did you have a good time believing it? And over and over and over and over again, that stuff petrifies. Petrifies actually back here in the cerebellum. And what you call logic, a lot of people are like, there's logic. And I'm cool with it. I don't mind you liking logic. But that's really just petrified emotion from the back of the cerebellum. That's all. It just feels so foreign. It feels so objective that you call it objective reality. And you should. Keep calling it that. Guys, call it that. Call it that. Ometeotl. Mesoamerican god of twins gave birth to twins. This is the source of the first male and female. Now, this is Mesoamerica, and then let me scroll to it without you seeing. I'm being sneaky. Sneaky, 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 faster than lightning. Just like in Egypt. This is the Ogdoad of Hermopolis. This figure right here in blue, these blue guys. Yeah, they're blue. Yeah, I write about Hades. And yeah, they're blue. Yeah, that happened. And that this is a primordial hermaphroditic twin of twins, meaning that these are hermaphrodites. These are men and women, but they are also twins. And this is the essence of the chimera, the genetic arc that we talked about yesterday, and that this was built into the oracle mythology in Egypt. And so they're showing it to you right there. Right there. Look at those blue guys pulling on each other's umbilical cords. And those are lotuses, of course. And so that lotus would be the Ka and the Ba of those two people, and that they cross over into two different realms. You see that? So Egypt knew this. They knew this. This was a pretty central theme. And let me get back without you. You can't see what I'm clicking on until I show you. Yeah. You can't see what I'm clicking on until I show you. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so as you just saw, it's just like this guy. Ometeotl. Excuse me. Looks just like that Egyptian thing, this thing in here. Two God or God of duality, forming by a feminine and a masculine. Twins giving birth to twins, male and female. The oldest story that we know, truly, I think we have to give credit to Kronos. And Kronos committed patricide, right? He dismembered his father. Cut him right where it hurts. And that by dismembering his father, our life, what we call our civilization, was born. Matricide. Turns out in Meso-America, same thing happened. But guess what? It wasn't patricide, it was matricide. And Thoth, Tholtecutli. I know the Kutli's right. Tholtecutli. That's got to be it. Tholtecutli, the guy on the right here, dismembered his mother. And when he did that, you know who fell out? Quetzalcoatl. He's like, hey, I just fell out of my dismembered mom. And his brother, it's Zygote. This is Uncle Sam, by the way, right here. This is Uncle Sam, believe it or not. This gets turned into Uncle Sam. This Ixtacmixcoatl guy gets turned into that. So, man boobs. He's got some man boobs. You were right about that, Richard. So you got those guys. It's the twins, and they're both male and female. That's sort of the theme that we're going for here. Dual guide. Ome translates as two or dual, and Teotl translates as God, right? So dual God. So in Natal, that's two Lord, Aztec deity, Lord of the Duality, also known as two Lady of the Duality. See what I mean? Like it's really strong. It's not a reach. And this is chimera. Mesoamerica had a chimera. Egypt had a chimera. They all have chimeras. Olmecs, same thing. El Azuzul, the twins. I told you yesterday about one set of twins, the Popol Vuh. Those are Mayan twins, and that they created the entire universe. These guys are a little bit different. They're unique, but they're still the same idea. These guys gave birth to everyone else out of these twins. Of course, the Popol Vuh, I showed you that yesterday. I do want you to see the Quetzalcoatl, though, is in there too. The snake, the plume snake, and the twins are both there. And this guy's, their father and their uncle were also twins. So having that built in really, I think, shows that this is a twin of twins. Of course, Osiris and Set were twins, and that the bringer of light was betrayed by his brother, but the dog outshined by his brother would therefore retaliate. This is Cain and Abel. And so what kicks off the gene, remember the gene is two. We talked about this yesterday. Maybe I didn't go into it well enough, but AGTC would be one side of the gene. And if one side has A, then the other side has to have T. Okay? And if one side says C, the other side has to say G. So even though it's 4-bit on one side, it's probably this way you might think about it. The other side is going to always be the mirror of that. So it's the polarity of that. So the other person is really the exact same person. They're just kind of inverted. And that's genetically. Like it's not symbolically. It's like genetically done that way. It's fascinating. And I told you yesterday that in order to come up with a human, you can't just have one side. You have to think about how does one side devour the other side? What's the end result? Do you understand? What's the end result? And so ultimately when Cain clubs Abel, I think you're looking at the very first transcription process. That's what that is. That the transcription process is what causes that to break. And one of them dies because both of them are finally kind of exploded into a body. And that the moment you hit the body, the mitochondrial DNA kicks in. It starts to fuck with things. And then these things called transposons start to kick in. And then on top of that, all the trauma that you've had starts to kick in. Remember I told you yesterday about the Enoch. The dude that cloned his horses knew certain things, right? Check out last part. Twin of twins. Here's morning star Luciferus, evening star Noctiferus. Again, Meso-American culture. The center of the Aztec stone that you look at, a lot of you call a calendar. I don't mind you calling it a calendar. Actually, the center of that is this figure combined. It's the Lucifer is kind of a leveling up. It's like a spiral, and then you raise. So it's 1, 2, 1 sun, 2 sun, 3 sun, 4 sun, 5 sun. 1 sun, 2 sun, 3 sun, 4 sun, 5 sun. And that's how you climb the ladder. I don't know if those are the sound effects. So I'm just showing a little bit of artistic thing there. I can show you these as we go through, but these are from yesterday. Okay, yesterday I told you that before the Ark of the Covenant, remember we were talking about the Ark of the Covenant? And I told you about this Aaron, the almond branch. This is the pee-pee. And this is the hoo-hoo, the little box there. And this is the, what do little boys call their balls? This is your balls. There you go. Here's a little purse. And I'm not just All churches rose from the erection, worship, and fetish of Priapus. And more importantly, the Migdalenes. Did you hear that? Migdalenes. Whoops. Migdalenes. This is a Migdalene right there. This is a Migdalene right there. Figure 8, figure 1. This is an androgynous Migdalene. This is a death Migdalene. You preserve. You push. Remember I told you yesterday that it's tower? Remember? Almond and Migdal are the same word. So the Migdal of Babel is the almond of Babel. And the little button on top of the little stargate. Yeah, it's got a little button on top. That's Migdal. That's if you think about this, it makes sense because it's as we get more sophisticated, we find talking about sex in public shameful because we have more electricity. And when we have more electricity, we're allowed to drape ourselves in more subtlety. And so I don't think that this is like a conspiracy. I think it's just naturally the shaming of Priapus is a natural thing that happens. And I think that's why we end up with feminism. It's kind of like it's maybe not feminism, but it's like that's why we end up kind of where we are now because we shame the Priapus so long because we're trying to get away from it when really this is just all we worship. This is all we do. Most churches were basically whorehouses. That's not basic. I'm sorry. Churches were whorehouses. You got coins, guys. You were given a monastery coin. And when we say your alms to the church, that literally meant you're going to pay for some syphilis. I mean, it wasn't marketed that way. They definitely didn't market it that way. But you would show up to church once a month, whenever you could make it. And you'd go there because there were cloistered nuns there. That's why you would go. You wouldn't go to listen to some dude browbeat you about how you didn't give up your parking space to somebody, and then everyone's just like, we will sing a song of grace and joy. Amen. Hallelujah. And it's no, it's you get in your boat. You're excited as fuck. You put on your best, your Sunday best. You buy, or you've probably earned your monastery coin, quite frankly, because you've dropped off enough sheep or enough hay, or God forbid, if you're a bricklayer, and you've dropped off all your stuff, and they've given you monastery coins. No kidding. And what do you do with monastery coin? You go to the whorehouse. You give them that. You get some bread. You get some water, and you get laid. You get put on the holy altar, the pulpit. Believe it or not, the pit, there's the stargate, and the pull, the foul, the pole. I'm perverted if you want, but this is still true. What do you think the yonk is? The origin of the yonk was the combination of coitus. It's the combination of coitus. It's from James Ballantyne's book, link in the comments. These things are gone now. These used to be everywhere. Everywhere. Oh, honey, let's go for a drive in the country and see the old church and take the kids with us on a lovely romp through historical back hills, Wales. I don't know. And you're like, yeah, let's go do that. And then you're driving around, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's a lot of dicks and balls on these churches. There's a lot of dicks and balls. In fact, one of the biggest proofs of this, if you know that the gargoyles of Notre Dame came in the 18th century. And before that, I think it was a lot of these. I don't know that because I wasn't there. But I think it was a lot of these. I think Notre Dame was just massive. And to be, if I can be a little bit crude here, I think people would come to church and drop off their offering. Fight me. Who wants to fight me on that? They would drop off their offering. And I think the first church is probably a hole in a rock. Be frank with you. Frank, don't do that. Frank. Oh my God, he's doing it again. He likes to worship during lunch when everyone's around. It is so annoying. So annoying. He has to stick his finger up his own butt when he's, oh God, it's awful. It is awful, guys. It is awful. Hey, hit that thumbs up, will you? Will you hit that thumbs up? Will you? Will you do that for me? I don't know why it matters. You could buy my book. You could. I'm just saying you could. So the Trinity, truly the Trinity is the Ark of the Covenant, is the Ark, the rod of Aaron, and 2 stone tablets, right? 10 commandments in the balls. The rod of Aaron. Remember the Aaron, this is an almond stalk, right? You take think about it, guys. You take a stick of almond and you put it in the box. Guys, this could not get more obvious. If you're having trouble with objective reality, I'm gonna do this for you really slow, okay? If you believe in objective reality, I want you to watch me and show you how it works, okay? Here. See that? Okay, watch. Oh, I'll do it again. Watch. Yeah. That's the Ankh. The Ankh. You're probably like, why are they worshiping fertility? Like, that doesn't seem right at all. What if fertility was brand new? What if from the very earliest age, fertility was something that had to be taught? What if it had to be taught? What if it had to be taught, ladies and gentlemen? You're watching James True Live. What if it had to be taught? The phallic rock. God is double sex, says James Valentine. Hane. The Elohim, the word Elohim means El, male, O, female, Im, plural. Male, female, plural. What if they had to teach the new crop about sex? Genesis 2:4-9. And the servant put his hands under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning the matter. This is called swearing of the phallus. Genesis 47:2-9. And the time draw nigh that Israel must die, and he called his son Joseph and said unto him, I now have found grace in thy sight. Put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. And you're just like, what the fuck? Hey, son? Yeah, Dad? Need you to come in here. First, I want you to pray. I want you to put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. This is deeper than you think. Bury me not means take my offering and do not spill it in Egypt. I swear to you, that's what it means. I swear to you. This is why I do this show. Elohim pronounced they and we. Yahweh. The pronouns of Yahweh are that and I. It's true. Yahweh, right? I am that which I am. His pronouns are that and I. He's not a he. He's not a she. The figure on the right is the earliest versions of Apollo. It's a hermaphroditic Apollo. He's like, yeah, I don't really want to shoot a bow. I'm not really into that, but if you hold it like this, you can play it like a lute string. Yes, I don't wear clothes. I think that I am lovely in my nakedness. I have a lot of hair adornments, though, because I am the hermaphroditic Apollo. Of course, the androgyne of Adam and Eve, Genesis 1, hermaphrodite with two faces. Let us make humanity in our image, after our likeness. They shall rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the cattle, the whole earth, and all the things that creep on earth. And God created humanity in the divine image. In the image of God they were created, male and female, God created them. Genesis 1:2-6 through 2:7. You like how I said that? Genesis 2, chapter 21. So the Lord God cast a deep sleep upon the man. And while he slept, God took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh at that spot. And the Lord fashioned the rib into a woman. And God brought her to the man. All right. So this androgyne has horns too. You see that? He's got horns. He's got horns. Right? We'll get to that later. Psalm 1395. You have formed me before and behind. That's what this means. You have formed me before and behind. You've taken your face and pressed it into my face, into the back of my face. And I think this is more about the genes. It's about carrying and copying that Enoch seed. A side of Adam. So the Lord, he took one of his ribs. His ribs actually means side. The word is side. I showed you how in Hebrew, it actually looks like the same word, right? It's spelled exactly the same. But in this case, it means side. And in this case, it means rib. So if you've always heard rib, you might picture the rib. But you could actually picture it as the side. You see, like this picture here. It would be just as correct to say he took this side and made female out of him. He took this side is what it did, right? Of course, we already showed you the Ogdoad, little man titties. And the Adam plural. This is, 4 eyes. Someone just typed that. The Adam plural. That in Samaria, there's pluralities there too. It's all over India. It's everywhere. Adam's a plural. And this is why I'm telling you that the Egyptians, what we call the Egyptians right now, had to be taught how to have sex and reproduce. They had to be taught that. Amen is the oldest reference to the divine Adam and Eve, believe it or not. They were placed on a barge and sent down the river. This is at Karnak. And that they'd be celebrated every spring. And it was known as the very first rites of fertility. And the very first rites of fertility were taught. They were actually taught. These are from yesterday. We talked about the seed. Remember, he had to be taught. You're about to see why. And his posterity shall beget on the earth. This is the book of Enoch, chapter 107. And his posterity shall beget on the earth giants. Not spiritual, but carnal. Right? Sex giants. Fucking sex giants. Right? That's how you unpack. Abraham is a sex giant, and you unpack his children. You unpack the patriarchs or the giants. They unpack themselves through sexing a better vessel that gets you to the end result. Remember the Cain and the Abel? The first gene ends up devouring the other gene, and it causes this weird progress. If you program a 3D game, it's no different than if you can't really just plant in the game, I want this object to be here at this time. I mean, you can, but it's not really practical. You're just going to throw baseballs at it until you hit it. That's a horrible analogy, but this is kind of what I mean. You can't really directly do something because the thing is unspinning. And so the Migdalene, Mary Migdalene, of course, she's known as the whore and the divine mother. And that's why, because the principles of fertility were installed in us as ideas. This came through Pan. I don't have time to cover this today, but the god of Pan, the god of fertility, he was the first god that died. Pan was. And the reason why is because we were installed on this place as mortal beings, not immortal. We had mortality, which means we died. Because we died, we had to be taught to have sex. And that's why our initial ideas, all of our oracles of mythology, everywhere you go, all point to this, that sex had to be taught, had to be installed. Deucalion was the son of Prometheus, and he's also Noah. These are the same people. And in this religion, very counterpart to the just like Gilgamesh, as we talked about yesterday, he's just placed inside of this ark instead. So here's kind of a missing link. Is this story that there's the Ark of the Covenant, but the Ark of the Covenant is actually in the water, right? In Hindu teaching, same thing. Manu's boat, Vishnu. This is actually Jonah and the whale too, origin from there. I just want to point out that this is kind of a sidebar, but most of the time that the ark is said to be in the water is typically runs into a trimester. It looks like a pregnancy. And I think that's the oracle mythology too. It's again, the oracle mythology is, the truth is there and we naturally find it through our stories. So we lie to ourselves. We let go of objective reality and we intuit the truth of what it is. Let's see. Keep in mind that the R's and the A's used to be the same. So Allah's lat is Ararat. That's the same thing. Allah, his lat, his member. So Allah's schlong is the same word as Mount Ararat. He laid his schlong on Mount Ararat. And that mountain, by the way, is the womb. It's the fallopian tube. The fallopian tubes. The tubies. The Picatrix says the Chaldeans affirmed that Hermes was the first. He constructed a city with 4 gates. On each of the gates, he placed an eagle, a bull, a lion, and a dog. In these images, he introduced spirits which could never even enter without permission. He's talking about some serious demons there. Pretty cool stuff. But he's introducing the idea of the chimera. And this chimera is really at the essence of how this ark works. I told you yesterday that Noah is the outer shell, the outer twin. So that makes him a hermaphrodite, like a living hermaphrodite. He doesn't need to have sex to have children. But inside of him is this special seed that's been placed into his vessel. Okay, so he doesn't need to have sex. What I mean by that is, as a hermaphrodite, he can self himself. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go have some kids. And he has kids. And those kids are just like him, except for Noah's the only one that his kids weren't like him. He had a son named Ham, and Ham wasn't like him. Ham had to have sex to reproduce. He had to. And Ham watched all of his other children, all of his other brothers die after 100 years. And Ham's like, I don't want to die like them. And so he ends up having sex with Noah. We'll get to that in another episode. It's just, the story is so wild. But I want to set up the chimera first, because this is all about genes. Most of our churches have these. This is from the Book of Kells, one of the oldest Christian texts. It's got the chimera there. You've got bull is Luke, eagle is John, man is Matthew, lion is Mark. Of course, you've got the angels of God themselves, the seraphim, or the cherub, I should say, and that those are the same chimera. Same chimera here. Same chimera here. And, of course, a composite of the 4 living creatures into one tetramorph. We'll call this a tetramorph. It's the same as calling it the chimera. It's a tetramorph. It's a morph of 4 different things. And in Samaria, this tetramorph was Matthew the man, Mark the lion, Luke the ox, and John the eagle. So the oracle mythology is actually talking about the genetics. It's all about the genetics of it. It's my opinion that, it's not just my opinion, but I think this is right on. The wings are gone. The Sphinx had wings. Those wings are gone. How they're gone, you could speculate. Maybe a flood took them out, right? Maybe a lot of water took it out. Maybe a war took it out. Maybe people that wanted to shame the Egyptians knocked it off. There's a lot to cover there. Ezekiel 1:10, their faces looked like this. Each of the 4 had the face of a human being. On the right side had the face of a lion. On the left, an ox and eagle, right? It's the same tetramorph. It's a vision of Enoch himself. Actually saw genetics. He was looking into the genes themselves in a dream. Of course, the astrology wheel, it's all right there, fellas. Right? It's all right there. Lamech is Prometheus. Noah is Deucalion. We'll cover this later. I'm going to purposely wait on that because it's some juicy stuff. I don't even know if you guys even want to talk about this. I don't know. The point is that the Ark of the Covenant is really about the genetics. To preserve life, you're going to need, you can't really just take 2 people. You're going to need a special genetic vessel for that. And the reason why I think the patriarchs are said to have lived longer is twofold. One I mentioned yesterday, there's just a morphing of time. But also, these guys had a very high propensity for carnal knowledge. In fact, I think I can show you this other slide here. Actually, let me correct this really quick. Yesterday I told you that Enoch is the sort of the key of man. It's better translated as Safra Rabba, or great scribe, or great male. And this would mean he would be the original copy. In the Septuagint, it says God took him. And then he was placed into an enclosed garden. Okay? An enclosed garden. This great scribe, he was no longer in the world to complete his years. Right? So he was removed in his prime. Enoch from the line of Seth understood the purpose of trauma. The Lord will effect a new thing upon the earth, it says. His three shall be saved. His 3 sons shall be saved. This is about Noah. And his posterity shall beget on the earth giants of spiritual, not carnal, as we said before. And then the Lord will effect generation after generation generation after generation shall transgress until a righteous race shall arise. So the pounding, pun intended, the pounding of the patriarchs, just pounding chicks all day. And you know that the patriarchs purposely took their knowledge, right, of roots, and see the old world genes. Remember how I told you about the cloning of the horses, that the horses remembered what happened? Noah, his line, remembers all there is to know about roots, about plants, about species, about trees. Okay, he remembers all that stuff, and as long as he's cloned, just like Clitoris, the horse I talked about yesterday, he's afraid of garden hoses as soon as he's born. So as long as these guys are pounding fresh chicks, the fresh chicks are having kids, and those kids know what they knew. And that's why this was talked about this way. And the others together with them took unto them wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms, and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants, and they became pregnant. So just like the horses, the polo horses knew how to play polo, thanks to the giants pounding some fresh virgins, the children of us have ancient knowledge. This is the same story of Quetzalcoatl, by the way, that the information of humanity is stored in the corn. And the corn, I think, is the genetic archetype, basically, of genes. This would